Hey guys, it's Peter and welcome to my channel. Wait for it, Peter Likes Books. Okay, so recently I have been seeing all of these videos from people that I love where they talk about they went through like a major reading slump or they didn't read any books for a month and they like apologize for it. And this whole idea of a reading slump I know is nothing new to BookTube. I know that it's nothing new to the book world, you know, like I think that a lot of people go through huge periods where they don't read at all, or, you know, like 1 month they read like 10 or 20 books or 5 books, and then the next 2 months they don't read anything or they only read 1 book, and so therefore we refer to that as a reading slump, and we see something like kind of shameful about that as readers, right? And, you know, since I started this channel, it's really made me evaluate a lot of like who I am as a reader. In fact, my last video, if you watched it, is about, or my 2 videos ago, is about, you know, I'm just a reader. So it's made me like really think about who I am as a reader. You know, and I think in the similar vein, it's kind of like, you know, if I'm a person that eats healthy and works out and is trying to be in the best health of my life, then if I am like, let's say going to the gym every day or every other day, and then there's like a week or 2 or 3 where I don't go to the gym at all, and then I call that like a gym slump, you know, or like a fitness slump. I mean, those things are in the same, you know, same way that we look at reading slumps. And I think that anything where we have some structure to it and we stop doing those things, especially when they're things that we love, we start feeling bad about that, or we feel ashamed about that. And I think that that's absolutely ridiculous. And it seems to me like nobody ever says in their videos, like, I just haven't read for 3 months because I didn't really feel like it and I'm not gonna make excuses about it. I mean, there's been like 1 or 2 that I've watched where I love that. I think K-tastic is kind of like that. But other than that, it's like the videos are very much like, I feel so bad that I haven't, you know, read 4 or 5 books this month or whatever. We read because we love to read, and if you're in a month where you're traveling or you're working harder or you just haven't felt like sitting down and reading, then that's cool. But I think there's a lot of reasons why we get into reading slumps, and I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about those today. You know, for me, I have to be honest, I am not somebody that typically gets into a reading slump. Like, I just don't very often stop reading altogether. And if I do, it's because I have a lot of other things that are going on in my life that reading is not a priority. But since I started my BookTube channel several months ago, and I am very conscious of my reading on a daily basis, my reading and my enjoyment of reading is definitely a priority. So it never kind of gets backburnered, if that makes sense. Backburnered? Anyway, but I will kind of explain to you what happens with me. So I am a huge audio book listener. And if you watch my channel, you know, like I'm constantly listening to an audiobook. And one of the things that happens is that often that I will get into an audiobook, and this has happened to 2 different books recently. And one was Carry On by Rainbow Rowell, which I loved the book, but the audiobook just, it lingered on and on and on. And the other one is what I'm listening to right now. It's The Night Circus. And I love the book. I think it's beautifully written. It is just a labor to listen to because it's very, if you've read The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern, you know, it's very intricate, very detailed. And so it's not kind of like just a fun listen, like you really have to pay attention. And so for me, what happens is I almost start feeling like it's a duty when I'm in my car, like instead of listening to the audiobook, like I find myself not wanting to do that, like, you know, not wanting to plug in my aux cord and listening to it. And recently what I have done, so if that happens to you, let me give you a little suggestion, is that like because I'm somebody that won't waste a credit on Audible, that if I bought the book, I'm gonna listen to it. I'm not necessarily like that with physical books, but with audiobooks, I'm definitely like that. And so what's happened recently is like, especially with The Night Circus, because I really do wanna listen to it and I really wanna enjoy it, is that I will say like, okay, so The Night Circus is like 13 hours, right? And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna give myself 2 weeks to finish this book. That's like an hour a day. I can do an hour a day. But then when I get into my car, I have to see kind of how I'm feeling. And if I don't feel like listening to my audiobook, because I usually listen, oh my God, I'm hiccuping. If I'm in my car listening to an audiobook and enjoying it, it's usually at night. Like, I do not necessarily love listening to audiobooks as I drive around during the day. I get very, very distracted. My phone rings, people text me, and so I typically listen to audiobooks at night, driving around. And that's kind of my enjoyment, like no purpose, just driving around listening to audiobooks. Sometimes, like if I'm really into a book, like Girl on the Train, I will listen to literally like 6 hours straight. What I have allowed myself to do recently, and I just did this today, was that if I'm not really into the book, and like today I woke up and I got in my car and I always go, so my first thing I do is I always go through Starbucks and get my Venti or Trenta today, iced coffee with 2 equal. And then I had to go to the post office box, and then I had to go to the dollar store to buy soap, hand soap, just because I'm sure you guys are so interested. And anyway, and as I was driving around, I like started to listen to it, and I was like, I am totally not in the mood for this today. And I was like, okay, so I really thought it out, because I was thinking about doing this video anyway, and I thought, what is your motive for listening to this today? And my motive was just to finish it. It was not to enjoy it, it was just to finish it. And I'm trying to really focus on reading for enjoyment, period, not feeling like I have to get a book done or anything like that, because I feel like the more I watch booktube videos and the more I make them, that I feel like there's this urgency to get books done, and that's just crap. Like, I shouldn't feel that way. So I turned it off and I started listening to music, and I just put my iPod on shuffle, and it was so funny because like a Waylon Jennings song came on, and then like a Martin Garrix song came on, and then like a Robin song came on, and like a Lady Gaga song, and so you know I was like dancing in my car, and I felt so good, right? That like after 5 or 6 songs, I kind of wanted to listen to my book. Like, I know that sounds crazy, but like I did. So I just had to do something different for a while and kind of clear my head. The other thing I have tried recently is, with audiobooks, kind of listening to them in a different environment. So I have like tried to, like, as I'm doing chores around the house, because I usually just like throw on a movie on demand that's free. Instead of doing that, like I will just like play it out loud in my condo. Or like have it on my headphones while I'm like cleaning the bathroom or doing laundry or something like that. And you know, it allows me to kind of enjoy those chores. And I'm sure this is nothing new to anybody else. I'm sure a lot of people do this. You know, or if I'm just like sitting on the front porch, you know, and whatever, just sitting on my swing, just kind of swinging, and sometimes I'll listen to it. I've been trying to take more walks in the evening with my dogs, and so when I do that, I try to listen to audiobooks, and it's funny because there's this woman that always walks by my condo like 4 times every night, and I can tell that she's listening to like a podcast or like an audiobook, and so I've been really trying to do that as well. As far as physical books go, because like with ebooks, I have had to not look at the percentage and the number, because you know, like on ebooks on your phone, on Kindle, it'll say like 5,000 pages or something, and that to me is just like, I start feeling really overwhelmed, and so that kind of throws me into a slump too. And for example, I have been reading Ellen Hopkins' Traffic, which is the sequel to Tricks now, for like 3 months, because I like never pick it up, because when I do, I'm like, oh my God, I'm only 30% done. And I think it's this whole idea of having to finish a book instead of just enjoying it. And a lot of people ask me, they're like, you read so many books at the same time, how do you keep it up? Well, here's the problem. If I get into a book that I enjoy, but I'm not really feeling in the mood to read it at the moment, I put them aside, and this is kind of how I get out of a reading slump. I put them aside and I pick up something else that I think I'm going to enjoy. If I don't really get into that book right away, then it kind of gets added to the number until I find a book that like gets me out of this like feeling like I don't want to read something. Because sometimes for me, it's just needing to complete a book and feeling like, oh my God, I read that book cover to cover and I loved it. So let me give you an example. If you guys follow me on a regular basis, you know this entire summer there have been 3 books that I have been reading. And the first is Tilt by Ellen Hopkins, which you can see I am only like 30% of it done, and I haven't read this in weeks, okay? And then the second one is Summer Days and Summer Nights, edited by Stephanie Perkins, and I am like literally at the halfway mark, and I want to get this done this summer because it's Summer Days and Summer Nights. And then the third one, which I might actually moved up a little bit, on page 54 is Helter Skelter. And the thing is, and look how large that book is, and that's where I'm at. Do you guys even see? Okay. So here's the problem, is that I don't know when I'm going to finish these books. Now, if these were the books that I was like, I have to finish these before I start something else, and I set rules to my reading, then I would never finish anything, because I would feel like so overwhelmed that like I'm never going to finish these books, right? And so then I would never be able to start any other books. Booktubeathon was fantastic for me, because what I did was I took these books and I just set them to the side, and I came up with 7 new books that I wanted to read that had absolutely nothing to do, and I put these on hold for the time being. And since then, I've kind of allowed myself to put these books on hold, and when I want to come to them, I do. Like the other night, I hadn't read a story in Summer Days and Summer Nights forever. So I went in and I was like, I'm going to read one story tonight. And I read Veronica Ross' story in here. And then I looked and the next story is like 50 pages and I was like, oh. But anyway, so like 2 weeks ago, I've been doing a lot of buddy reads this month. Like 2 weeks ago, I had all these things I wanted to catch up on, and I always say, like, I need to catch up on these books and get them done. I don't know why I feel like I have to finish these books at some time. I mean, there is no rules to my reading, right? If it takes me 2 years to read Helter Skelter, oh well, you know? But I picked up The Absolutely True Diary of a Part-Time Indian by Sherman Alexie because I was doing a buddy reads with Graham at Mega Man Chief Fan. Okay, so this book, you guys, from cover to cover, is 229 pages. I loved this book so much, and I literally sat outside and I read it cover to cover in like 3.5 hours, right? And what happened as a result of that was I went through all of my like books that I haven't read, all my TBR, and I started pulling out like some shorter books because I was like, I really want to like enjoy a shorter book, like get into the book, read it, enjoy it, and get it done. As a result of that, like it kind of got me out of this whole kind of slump back into loving to read again. And so now I'm like picking up like Cinder and like The Red Queen, and I've been reading a little bit of these each night, you know. I think I'm reading like 10 pages of Helter Skelter a night, and then like these other ones I picked up. And it's really kind of like reinstated my love for reading. But sometimes I just need to take a break and not read and not feel ashamed about it and, you know, not blame myself for not reading because I'm a reader or I'm a booktuber or I'm a book lover. Like, there's nothing wrong with that, right? I mean, women or men, I guess, that love makeup and beauty rituals, just because they don't want to put on makeup for a day does not make them, you know, like, whoo, you know, like they're bad people or something, you know? Or, you know, for a really, really long time, I was a vegetarian. And I can remember it's like one day, like, I broke down after like 3 years, and I don't even know what had happened that day. Well, it's kind of a funny story, but anyway, my husband wanted me to go through McDonald's, and so I just was like, I was not happy that day, and so I got like fries, and that was it. And then like when we parked to let the dog out, and I went inside and got chicken fingers, which whatever, but. The next day, I was like back at being a vegetarian again, but I like was so ashamed. I was like, oh my God, all that time I had where I was like a vegetarian is like lost forever. No, it's not. No, that's ridiculous. And I'm not gonna feel bad about that. Like, you know, nothing in life, these burdens and these stresses and these rules that we put on ourselves are so crazy. Like, why do we feel bad about those things? You know, if you enjoy reading, read books, you know, go pick up something shorter, go pick up something longer or whatever. For me, a few things that get me out of writing slumps when I'm kind of in those moods, is picking up something completely different, picking up something that I've wanted to read forever, picking up something that is totally different than what I'm reading and putting these books aside. And here's the deal. I don't have to DNF these books. Like, these are books that I want to finish, right? But I can put them on my shelf and say, you know, maybe now's not the time to read them, out of sight, out of mind, and feel better about it, and just go pick like 2 new books. Like, I'm looking right over there right now, and I have out Red Queen and The Great American Whatever, which I am doing as a buddy reads with Rob at Books and Bob's. So, you know, and that's okay. And like, these are going to go on my shelf for this month. And when I want to go over there and pick them up, I'll pick them up, and I'm not going to feel bad about it. And I think that's the key to getting out of reading slump, is not shaming yourself or feeling bad and just letting the time come. Like, you know, not feeling bad about not reading. And when you're ready to read again, you'll read again, you know? And I think that's the biggest biggest trick to getting out of reading slump is just giving yourself the time you need, you know? Like, nothing out there says that you have to constantly be reading a book, you know? Or if you don't like to read, try an audiobook or try a Kindle book, you know? Or try a graphic novel. That really helped me, was actually starting to read some graphic novels, because as much as I loved them, it made me realize how much I love books. And so anyway, yeah. If you're reading something long, try something short. If you're reading something short, just try something different. You know, maybe that'll like pump something different in you. You know, they say that with working out as well, that like if you're going and you're like running on the treadmill every day, go ride the bike or lift weights or take a walk or something like that, or swim. And sometimes making changes to your routine will get you spirited again to get back into what you love. So for me, that's what I always do when I feel myself kind of getting into a writing slump, is that I just completely change everything that I'm doing and try to do something different. Does that make sense? So I don't know. I hope that's helpful. Maybe give it a try. You know, whatever slump you're in, do something completely different. Put down the books you're reading and pick some new ones. I don't know. You know, it could work. Try it. I hope it works for you. And if you guys liked this video or found anything about it entertaining, please give me a big thumbs up. And yeah, and I would love for you to subscribe to my channel. And I will see you guys later. I love you. Bye.